Welcome to the Rebel Rise podcast, a place where badass women like you come to connect, learn, and grow. Here, we celebrate the relentless spirit of women who dare to dream and design their own destinies. This is your time for no bullshit, so no subject is off limits. This is a time for you to collect inspiration and create the vision for your life. Get ready to break free from societal expectations, take your power back, and step into your dream life. Your empowerment journey begins right here. Let's go. In this episode of the Rebel Rise podcast, we're going to be talking with Durita Holm. Now, she is the director of coaching for mastermind.com, which is a business owned by Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. So if that doesn't tell you how powerful this woman is, I don't know what does. Now, Durita is known for her career as an anthropologist and a mindfulness teacher, but she's also published several books and even sailed around the world. So this is a really interesting interview, and I hope you enjoy it. Well, welcome, Durita. I am so excited to have you today on the Rebel Rise podcast because I know you're going to have so much value to add to our listeners. And I am really excited for this topic because this is something that I preach with all of my clients day in and day out. It's all over my content, and it is the importance of the mind, body, soul connection. And I know that you are just the person to have this conversation with. But before we dive into all of the interconnectedness of this and why it's so important and why it's so effective, can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, absolutely. And Vanessa, I'm so pleased to be here. It's a real honor. I love to get to speak to you.
I love talking to you too.
Yeah. And this theme that you're talking about, mind, body, spirit, is definitely something, an interest that we have in common. Tell you a little bit about myself. Well, I am from Scandinavia. I'm from a very small country, an archipelago, small islands. They're called the Faroe Islands. They're way out there in the North Atlantic Sea or North Atlantic Ocean between Iceland and Norway. That's where I grew up. But I've traveled and lived in many places. I'm an anthropologist, so I've also worked all around the world. Easter Island, Ukraine, Africa, you name it.
Amazing.
And I've lived in many places. But for the last 20 years, I have lived in Spain. I live here in Spain with my horses and my daughter. I also have a grown-up daughter, and she lives in Norway. And then I am, of course, a coach. So I used to work as an anthropologist. I've written several books, and then used to write for newspapers as well. And then I transitioned and became a mindfulness teacher. And I did that for about 7-8 years full time, and then started coaching. And that's how you and I know each other. We've worked for the same company.
Yep, absolutely. Can you talk a little bit about your journey to mindfulness? Because going from anthropology to mindfulness, which was really your catalyst for coaching and everything, what was that journey like for you? Because that's, I think, going to be a really beautiful segue into what the topic of focus is today.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's always so interesting. Why does someone choose to make such a change in their life?
Yeah.
And as very often, as with many people, it came about because of pain, and I didn't know how to handle it. So I'd gone through life, everything was fine. And life seemed to be kind to me and seemed to flow and so on. And then I had a breakup with my daughter's father, and that was just so terrible. I mean, it wasn't the first breakup up in my life, but it was perhaps the first breakup where I really felt the weight of it. I was devastated. I was absolutely heartbroken and devastated. And I remember, my friends were so supportive, my girlfriends, right? And they would say all the right things to me, Vanessa. They were great. But this pain, I just didn't know what to do with it. And it was like, who has the answers? And then one day I went down to the little shop in the village close to where I live. And this guy who's a Tibetan Buddhist who I knew lives close to me. I live in the mountains and he lives even further up. And I knew he was on a 1 year retreat. So I was surprised to see him at the shop, but obviously he too needed food supplies every now and again. And I kind of knew him because he lives in the same area, but I'd never been interested in his anything, meditation or anything. But something just clicked in my head and said, he has the answer. He might have the answer to what do I do with all this pain and this. I don't. I honestly was at my wit's end. I didn't know what to do. So I walked up to him and I said, I know you're in a retreat and I know, but can you teach me to meditate? And he said, sure, come up this evening. And from there on, I would go up every single evening that I could. And then I ended up taking a 2 years master's degree in mindfulness afterwards. And it's been the best thing I ever did for myself.
Yeah, I love that. It's such an incredible story. And just to see how open and willing people who have spiritual practices are to share that, even when someone is on retreat, how he was able to greet you with those open arms. And I know you and I talked about this story a little bit when you were visiting the US and we were up in Sedona for the day. So it was a really powerful story to share while we were up there. And so I love that. I think it's a really powerful trajectory for you, right? Like a way for you to get into this mindfulness practice. And I mean, that was the basis of your personal coaching business. So can you explain a little bit about that? I know you're not actively in your business now, but how did you maybe teach your clients about the importance of having mindfulness in their everyday lives?
Yeah, to me, it's the foundation for everything, for a good life, mindfulness, I mean. So, coaching clients come for a variety of reasons. And I would say that no matter what they come for, whatever it might be, I want to grow my business, or it might be something personal. In both cases, mindfulness is such a powerful tool. It's a tool for life. Because if you think about what is mindfulness, it's about awareness, it's about growing not only your self awareness, but your self awareness and the awareness of your surroundings, of other people, of everything. So it's always going to be a very powerful tool, no matter what you do. And anybody who is seeking a coach, who comes looking for a coach, um, and I like imagine if we could just give as a gift to all our clients, Vanessa. Here you have 100% self-confidence. Go do with it whatever you want. People would never need a coach again. Like if you
100%.
had 100% self-confidence, that's that missing piece. When you have that, you can do anything. The world is open for you. You can explore whatever you want, be it relationships, career advancements, building your own business. If you have self-confidence, you're so powerful. And mindfulness is a tool for building self-confidence because it's about awareness. It's about that connection that you were talking about, the
Yeah.
spirit, mind, and body, depending on how far you want to take it, right? But I would
Yeah.
always want to take it as far as possible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think touching on the awareness, like that's so important. And I think often because for really anybody, it doesn't matter if you're a high achiever or not, there's there's this separation I think that we create between what the mind, the body, and the soul is. And it's so easy to get in this rhythm of working late, sleeping less, using supplements and coffee and other types of stimulants to run through our day. And then we don't have the energy to work out. We wake up, we don't have enough time to meditate. And even if you're meditating, if you're making the time to meditate, and you're not doing anything that feeds into your soul, something that lights you up, but maybe you're working out, you're still going to feel really out of balance. And when you're talking about the awareness, it's about knowing, in my opinion, it's about knowing yourself enough to say, hey, something is off here. And I actually know exactly what it is. So I don't know about you, but if I don't go and move my body at least 4 times a week, I can feel that in my body. It's not always an ache or a pain, but maybe it's a like maybe I'm foggy for the day. I'm not as quick on my feet when I need to be. I don't have the answers for my clients as quickly as I need. Or if I don't meditate, if I'm not going out and doing something for myself to fill my own cup. And so I think on the outside, it can feel a little bit overwhelming if you haven't done it, if you haven't achieved that balance. And I know that there's a lot of talk recently about like true balance doesn't exist. And I think that's really funny because there are ways to balance it, and it's about finding what works for you.
Yeah. And you know, although we can find balance, it doesn't mean that we can always, you know, we can always find more balance. Maybe the perfect balance doesn't really exist, only
Yeah.
exists momentarily, but you can always, as and I think the key there is what you're saying, that when you know to listen to your body, when you know, oh, why am I feeling so grumpy, or why am I discontented, or why am I irritated with everybody today, and then you know, oh, I haven't moved, for example, right? But to me, to be honest, mind, soul, spirit, body, like we always think of them as if they are connected, right? And to
Yeah.
me, it's not even that. It's not even that they are connected. It's that they are one. It's
Yeah.
not connected. It's not you have mind here, you have body here, you have soul somewhere else and spirit somewhere else. It's one interconnected thing that's always talking to each other and always interacting with each other. So if when you tweak one, tweak your mind, your body will know. Tweak your
Yeah.
body, your mind will notice. Tweak your mind, your spirit will notice. Tweak your spirit and your body will notice. So the more, and that's that holistic whole human being that we're talking about. And as you were saying, you have to nourish all these aspects. But the less, I always try and not separate them and say, now I'm going to nourish my mind. Now I'm going to nourish my body. For example, I like to go running in the forest. And when I'm running in the forest, yes, I'm nourishing my body, but I try to stay really present. So I'm also nourishing my spirit, my soul, my mind. And I try to really connect with the trees and the sun and the wind on my skin and the mountains. So to me, going running is usually, unless I'm out of my mind, is usually a spiritual practice as well.
Yeah.
So I try to, as much as possible, to have them 100% integrated. Doesn't mean that I always do that, but I try.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's also so important. That goes back to knowing yourself because falling into like there's a difference with running at the gym inside under harsh lighting because you have to because you even if you like running, there's a difference between going to the gym and running on a treadmill or being outside, being in a setting that you absolutely love. So I think that that's really important too. So I would encourage anybody who's listening, if you feel like you're feeling off in this moment, to ask yourself, how can you make something that you enjoy something that's even more enjoyable and make it feel of less than a chore? And it's kind of interesting. I was actually listening to a podcast by another coach this morning, and they were talking about morning routines. And it's kind of the same thing where we feel all this pressure to have a morning structure, So I get up at 6 a.m. every day, I stretch for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to spend exactly 20 minutes meditating and, so on and so forth. And then it becomes a list of chores, another checklist that you have to write these tasks off and it's not enjoyable. So there actually can be, in my opinion, more balance as well in just going with the flow and finding what works for you. So for me, I don't meditate every day. I know there's benefits in that, but if for me, I'm feeling like getting a cup of coffee and sitting out on my porch and getting sunlight first thing, that can be more beneficial to me than sitting inside and doing a candlelit meditation, right? Sometimes I don't want to stretch. Sometimes I want to read a book first thing in the morning. And so it's going with that flow. And for me, that's what makes me feel more lit up and focused than if I had an actual routine and an actual checklist.
Yeah, but also like, what is meditation? That's like, let's not
Yeah.
go there. Let's not go there because that's a
It's a
huge
whole nother
topic.
episode.
Yeah, but like your favorite cup of coffee, sitting on your porch, enjoying it, being present with it, feeling the air on your skin, watching the light changing as the sun comes further and further. I mean, if that isn't mindfulness or if that isn't nurturing your soul, I don't know what is. I feel a little bit the same. Like my
Yeah.
cup of coffee in the morning is sacred. To me, it's sacred, you know? And yeah, and I would also say, like, not everybody runs, right? You don't have to run. You can, like, movement can be walking, but
Yeah.
there's so much to be said about being outside, being connected to Mother Earth, you know? And even if you live in a city, you can still, the air is still there. You can still see the air and the clouds and the changing light, and you can feel the breeze. You know, we don't, and there are parks and there are rivers in many cities. We don't have to complicate this.
Yeah.
It's
And that's the
available for
key.
everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is the simplicity of it all, because we have a tendency to overthink, especially for women who are overachievers and, top performers. We want to make sure that we have the right answers and that we're getting it right. We have that air of perfectionism, and it's kind of the opposite of what mindfulness is. It's exactly the opposite. And
Yeah.
I was just having this conversation with another podcast guest the other day where and I'm not even ashamed to share it. For me, meditation took a really long time for me to master, like a few years, because I was thinking, okay, I have to drop down. And so, what that meant in my head to drop down into a meditation was to essentially leave my body, like astro project, like not notice anything around me. And so, the second I heard something like my refrigerator turn on or my dog's paws in the hallway, I would get frustrated because I'm like, I'm not doing this right. But it took me so long to realize now it's actually very simple. It's just about sitting there and observing and allowing. And you don't have to leave your body for that. It's just about sitting in the moment and being and noticing those things is the presence of it all.
Absolutely. And I love the word allowing. That's the whole point. And the more you
Yeah.
can allow, that's also, now you're going into self-acceptance and self-confidence and all those things. And I think what you were sharing before also about the morning routine, right? And then I do
Mhm.
this for 20 minutes and then that for 20 minutes. And I get up at 5 a.m. and all those things. You know, sometimes self-mastery is actually self-tyranny, you know, and especially women, we're extremely good at tyrannizing ourselves in the search for mastery, in the search of being the very best we can. I mean, that perfectionism and all that, that is so destructive. And women are often, especially high achieving women, often fall
Yeah.
prey to this. And it's a really dangerous path to travel down. Like, we have to be really careful. Where is that balance between self-mastery and self-tyranny? That is something to be on the lookout for high achieving women, for sure.
Yeah, no, I love that. And a lot of that comes from these societal pressures, right? All of these
Yeah.
things that we're told that we need to have to be successful, a house, a marriage, kids, a career, like all these things that we're balancing. So, what would you recommend? And I was going to ask you this anyways. This is perfect, but this is going to be really interesting because you have you come from the European lifestyle, and this is we're in America, and this is, I'm hoping everyone around the world is listening to this. So hopefully it's helpful. But America in particular, we have that, run on empty type of mentality where it's, hustle mentality is glorified, right? So what would you recommend for women who are feeling that societal pressure or are tyrannizing themselves to get started on this journey to having better balance, letting go a little bit, and just being able to have that sense of independence about themselves?
Yeah. Well, I think the curious thing, Vanessa, is that the more relaxed one becomes, the more attractive you are to your workplace, to your superiors, your bosses, or whatever, or as an entrepreneur, the more relaxed you are. And you can't be relaxed and uptight at the same time. And if you're like living that, like, I have to be perfect and everything needs to be perfect, and that's uptightness. And that's not charming. that's not attractive to others. So if you are, say, if you're an entrepreneur or you're trying to make a career in a company or something, the more you rest in yourself, as that relaxed being you were made to be, the more you're actually going to achieve, but not in a forceful, pushy way. You're going to achieve it because you exude this self-confidence and this ease about you, and you get things done with ease. And the more cortisol we've got and adrenaline we've got coursing in our veins on a day-to-day basis, the less creativity we have. Creativity goes out the window. So
Yeah.
you're not able to do your best job when you're stressed out, your best work when you're stressed out. So we think that, oh, I can't relax. I can't let my guard down because then I'll never, make any progress wherever it is you want to make that progress. But it's actually the other way around. But it's difficult, though. It's difficult to let go a little. And it takes you having that base of being able to rest in yourself and trust in yourself, because that's a huge thing that people don't trust in themselves because of the society we grow up in. We're never enough. When if we
Yeah.
just let go a little, we would be enough.
Yeah, oh, that's so good. And I love that shared that it does go back to trust. It
Yeah.
completely goes back to trusting yourself and allowing yourself to be in flow. And this
Yeah.
is something that truly clicked for me very recently as well, is how to be in flow so that I can be relaxed and I can magnetize things to me. And this is something that really just happened in the last few months, was the study of feminine energy and being in that flow versus the masculine energy of like, okay, I've got to do this and I've got to go, go, go. Cause we're kind of going against the way we're supposed to be as women, anyways, which is that's a whole nother podcast topic for a whole nother day. But what I realized was I was giving all of my energy to my career and into things that were outside of my control, anyways. So I was getting upset. There was a lot of resistance, and I think it wasn't attractive, not in an off-putting way, but it wasn't like in a magnetizing way. It wasn't attractive to people around me. And so I had this realization as I was starting to study these feminine energetics and what flow looked like, that I actually had a choice of where I could put my energy, where I could put my effort. And if you work for someone else, it's always going to be it's their baby, it's their decision. So at the end of the day, you putting all of your energy, your effort into something that you don't have full control over, it can feel really uncomfortable and really stress inducing. And I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with working for anybody. I'm not trying to advocate for entrepreneurship. That's not for everybody. My point is that if you're an achiever and you work extra hard, don't stop working extra hard, but find a better place where you can put your energy in. Where can you find a space in your life that deserves that type of effort and that type of energy? Is
Mhm.
it meditation? Is it going hiking on the weekends? Like if you do those things, like you were just saying, Durita, that allows you to relax. That connection allows you to be in flow because you're putting that effort and that energy back into yourself. And that is something that you can control. So once I was able to do that, I I just became magnetic at work. I became magnetic in my business. Things are flowing to me that I'm not even having to try so hard for. And you've been witnessing this, so you know that this is true. Where I'm just getting all kinds of opportunities, and it's not because I'm necessarily going out and looking. I'm certainly putting forth the effort, but I found a way to not only create balance for myself, but figure out where are the appropriate places for me to put my passion and my energy into so that I can stay in flow. And it depends on what it can be different from day to day. But yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of what my discovery has been as far as relaxing and learning to trust myself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so powerful. And it's so true that when we're uptight, nothing, good things don't seem to happen to us. And it's
Yeah.
understandable. Why would people give us opportunities and come looking at, like seeking us out? Nobody wants to be around people that are uptight. Whereas when
Right.
you're relaxed and in your passion, you could say, or in your selfhood, when you have that connectedness between body, spirit, and soul, and you rest as that person, then opportunities come your way because other people see you and they go, I want to be near that person. I want to work with them. I want to, I want to be good to them, or whatever it is. But it is challenging for sure. Let's not pretend that this is easy, because it's a
Right.
fast-paced world and most people are employed. And even if you're an entrepreneur and self-employed, it's very difficult to run your own business, So it really does come down to, as you say, are you nurturing those your own things? Are you nurturing your soul, your spirit, your body? So it comes back around to that. And that's what you're saying, that you started putting more energy into not putting all your eggs into the basket of your job, but also putting some of that energy back into your own system so that you
Yeah.
can be nourished. And I mean, it's so easy to leak out energy, and not
Yeah.
replenishing it, and to me, I would say that spiritual component of that, or that soul component of that, that's where the real power is. So yes, get enough sleep. Yes, eat lots of vegetables. Yes, get movement for sure. But not until you tap into that soul power, or
Mm.
that spiritual component, and start connecting to your soul and even asking, I wonder what the soul even is, or I wonder what my spirituality looks like, or, not until then do I think that you become a truly, dare I say, not happy, because that's not the word I'm looking for, but not until then are you starting that journey of feeling fulfilled for real. Like it adds a whole other dimension to feeling fulfilled and whole as a human being, when when that when you allow that to grow in you, when you allow your soul to grow in you, when you allow your spiritual dimension to grow in you. That's when you really start seeing that life can be so beautiful, much more beautiful than you ever saw it before, because there's more dimensionality to it. It feels so much richer, and it gives meaning. It feels more meaningful, and it's easier to trust when you start connecting to your spirituality or to your soul. So it comes back to that self-confidence and all these things that spirituality brings trust with it the deeper you go into it.
Yeah. So beautiful and so true. So
Mm.
this leads me into another question that I'm just going to throw right back to you. For someone who is sitting here listening to this right now, and this has been me, where you're saying, okay, this is, yeah, connect to your soul, like do that first, figure out what your soul is. What do you want? If they're sitting here listening and thinking, like, I don't know, like, I don't know the first thing about what do I want? Like, what do I even want? How do I even begin to explore this? What would be like one or two things you would recommend that they start with to begin to even ask themselves that question? Because that can feel really loaded if you've never done it before.
Do you mean asking just what do I want? What does my innermost self want in life? Was that the question?
Yeah, yeah, because I
Yeah.
think a lot of us don't even realize that there is another layer to us like that. They maybe have never even thought about it before.
Yeah. Well, the first thing, like self-confidence, spirituality, connecting to your soul, like as you're saying, I've never thought about those things. I'd love to, Durita. I'd love to connect to my soul, but I don't even know what my soul is, or I'm not spiritual. I'd love to be, but I don't even know what it is. Or whatever it is that you're wanting to have in your life, the first thing is always curiosity, awareness, start exploring. And that open-mindedness of, wow, I wonder, soul, what is that? Do I have one? Where is it? What does it mean? Like, When you engage with something, whatever it is, it becomes real in your life and it grows in your life. So if you're curious about becoming an entrepreneur, then you start reading books about entrepreneurship, you go on YouTube, you start, investigating this thing. It's the same with, be it self-confidence, be it I want to feel stronger in my body, or I want to feel stronger in my mind or in my spirit. Curiosity, that open-minded, like complete curiosity of, I wonder what that is. What am I feeling? What would that feel like? Did I have some kind of spirituality when I was a child? When I'm at the beach and I see the sunset and something comes over me where I just feel this peace and awe, what is that? Could that have something to do with spirituality? Or when I'm standing on a mountaintop and I look over and I see the horizon and everything just feels, again, peaceful. I feel that contentedness and that awe, like, wow, this moment is perfect. Could that have something to do with spirituality? Could that have something to do with your soul? Could that be your soul speaking to you, feeling connected? Like curiosity and awareness, always. And
I love that.
to engage with whatever it is you want to explore.
Yes, yes, that's so good. And the other thing I would add to this with curiosity, because this is where I started, I would always feel in the moment, right, with beaches and sunsets, like you were saying, but I also found that getting curious about the things I enjoyed when I was a small child, like what are those things? And can I revisit them now as an adult? Because we push that stuff off to the side and act like it doesn't matter because you're taught you've got to grow up now, you have to be an adult. But how many of us feel really alive when this great song comes on in the car and we're just cutting loose and dancing in the car? Or exactly, or you're at home and you're acting so weird. Like I talk so weird to
Yeah.
my dogs, like weirder than probably anyone could ever even imagine that I would. And so like we're still always that young child, like that being inside. And I think we're the most connected to who we are at a soul level when we're young. And so I think also getting curious about that, like who is that person, who was that person, and how can I get connected to them again? And that's a whole nother topic of inner child work as well. I very much believe that that helps to find that connection. But if that doing inner child work feels really heavy or even esoteric to you, I totally get it. But just being curious, like what are those things that I enjoyed when I was a kid? Just being dorky. How can you do that in public? How can you be a little weird in public? Or if you used to like to dance, I use that as an example because that was one for me that I revisited as an adult and it really speaks to me at a soul level. So just get creative with how you can explore getting curious about you.
Yeah, exactly. I love that phrase. Get curious about you. And as you say, all children actually, up until the age of 4 or 5 or something, probably until they start going to school or some kind of institution, they have natural spirituality, natural joy. They lose themselves in whatever activity they're doing when they're playing and that kind of thing. And we lose that, but we can get back to it. And it brings so much joy back into your life, and it's available to everyone, and it's free. It doesn't cost anything. We can all do that. Dancing around in our kitchen while we're cooking, we can all do that. Or we can also be grumpy and keep thinking about that thing that happened at our job today. It's actually a choice. You
Yeah.
get to choose. And I know that many people will say, no, Durita, you don't understand. My life is really complicated. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? So is mine.
Yep.
But I still have a choice. I'm not saying it's easy because our body mind takes over. And if something really unpleasant happened at the job, we're worried about something. We are in that habit. Like all the grooves in our brain and in our body, all the patterns are cemented, calcified in our brain and in our body, in our nervous system to worry, because that's what we do. We worry. We were taught to worry, and we think that worrying is going to give us the solutions. And that is the biggest lie ever, because that comes back to the more uptight you are, the less creative, the less attractive you are, and no good things come from that stressful,
Yeah.
uptight, state of being. So when I say it's a choice, I don't mean to say that it's easy, but it's like everything else. If you start, and that's where awareness comes in, or mindfulness, if you start training your mind and your body to not, when you come home from work, you're not at work anymore. Let's just be here. You're holding these vegetables. Let's just feel these vegetables. You're hearing your child perhaps playing with another kid in the other room, and they're laughing. Don't get frustrated and irritated. Wow, they're so happy playing. You can be grateful for that. It's these small moments where we change our behavior slowly, that will then change our lives, and
Yeah.
we can become more joyful if we decide that's what we want to do. But it does take an effort. It does take being aware and choosing. I'm going to take my mind away from the work, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to look around and see what's beautiful around me. What can I be grateful for in this very moment? And it's
Yeah.
free. Everyone can do it. Work with your mind, work with your body.
Yeah. And I also think being curious about why you're upset and why, when you know you have the awareness that you can change it, sometimes it's easy, it's like a switch. And then there's other times you want to stay mad. So getting curious, like, why do I want to stay mad? What is the reason? What is a thing that I'm hanging on to that's it's trying to keep me safe? And
Yeah.
what is that? And why is it that way? Because as you get curious about what that is, you're going to learn more about yourself,
Yeah.
more about your past, the triggers, the things that have stuck with you. And then you can kind of begin to work through those things and
Yeah.
realize that you are safe, right? The tendency to lean toward the negative is something that is designed to keep us safe. It's an evolutionary thing, but we don't need it anymore. And that's the silliest thing. It's one of the oldest things in our programming, and for some reason the hardest one to let go of, because we're still sticking on into that fight or flight response. And it really is a funny thing when you think about it. It's like, why do I need that? Like, I don't sleep in a cave. There's not something that's hunting me, and there's no bear that's going to be out there to get me. And so you're right. It is a choice. We can really choose to look at life with a lot of folly. Like, it can be so beautiful and whimsical and fun and really curious at all moments. And I am not claiming to be perfect at this. There are
No.
sure times when I am so sad and ones when I am so angry, but I allow myself to feel it in that moment. I talk to the person that I need to talk to about it, and then I can release it and I can move on. But I think holding on to that curiosity and asking yourself, like, why do I want to be mad in this moment, and then processing it and moving through.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating that we don't feel our feelings, right? But we do have like some scientists say that every emotion, only like an emotion, is biochemistry in our body. It's hormones releasing in our body. That's what an emotion is. So it's a physical thing, right? And there
Yeah.
are reasons, there are triggers, and there's our history that decides, like, we're conditioned, causes and condition. We're conditioned to feel certain feelings. Some people feel more anger than other people, and so on. It's conditioning as well. But some scientists say that every emotion actually in the body, if you just leave it, like let it run its course, only lasts 90 seconds. But we can hold on for it for 10 years, for 20 years. I mean, I know I used to work with the daughter of a woman who got divorced, and her mother had held on to that anger, like really strong anger and bitterness for 40 years about that divorce. So, scientists say maybe an emotion only lasts 90 seconds, but you can choose to hold on to it and to keep telling stories in your mind about the thing that happened so that you keep the emotion alive for 40 years. It's your choice. 90 seconds or 40 years or 10 years or a week or 3 days, And like recognize that emotion and say, "Oh, anger. Oh, I wonder why I'm angry. Oh, frustration. Ah, of course, that thing at work. And oh my God, he is so annoying, or she is just, oh, can't stand her." That's okay. Let it run through your body and release it and come back to the moment. And as everything, it's practice, and it's not gonna be perfect the first time nor 5 years earlier, but you will get better and better at it the more you practice it.
Yeah. And just letting go of that perfectionism, right? Which I think we mentioned earlier. It's that expectation of ever achieving perfectness is actually the exact opposite of having mindfulness. It's actually the exact opposite of having any semblance of balance. It's, curiosity, flow, just finding joy in the everyday moment. And I know for some people that may seem like totally crazy and completely unachievable, but like you said, Durita, like it really is a choice. It really is a decision that we get to make every day. And with practice, it is really achievable. And I used to be somebody who would say, who's this happy? Like I would see people just walking through life being happy all the time. I was really cynical at the time. I'd be like, well, she's full of shit. Like nobody is ever that happy all the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, no one's happy 100% of the time. I
No,
don't care
no,
how spiritual you are, how connected you
no.
are to yourself. And I think that the statement that I used is true with some people and it's not. Right. Like some people are kind of faking their way through their
Yeah.
happy because they haven't found a way to explore themselves and to know themselves on this level. But there are also people who do the work, people who have, and for them, like you said, it's a choice. So if I have one life to live and I could die
Mm,
tomorrow, I would
mm,
much rather die happy
mm,
and curious than to die stressed out, tense, have all of
mm,
these things, going on inside of my body. And that's a whole nother topic for another day where we could talk about all of the things that we can create in our minds that manifest in our bodies as well. But it is possible to find a way to genuinely move through life like pretty dang happy. Like there's things that go wrong in my life. There's terrible days that I
mm.
have, terrible weeks. I just had a really tough couple of weeks. But
I know.
at the end of the day, I can see the light at the
Mm.
end of the tunnel, the light in my life, the things that I can be grateful for. And I can genuinely say that the last 2 or 3 years, I go to bed genuinely fucking grateful for all of the things that I have in my life. It's so true. And sometimes I can't name things. I know with a lot of gratitude practices, they're like, say 3 or 5 things that you're grateful for. And sometimes I can. Sometimes it's the light in the sky. Sometimes it's fresh air to breathe. Sometimes it's my dogs, it's my home. But then there's other times I'm like, I don't even know how to explain it. I'm just so damn grateful. And in that moment, I'm grateful for being grateful because I remember what it
Yeah.
felt like to be cynical and tired and just frustrated and angry all the time. But I just want to make sure that whoever's listening, you really hear me. And this is not me having this toxic positivity. This is me saying if you put in the work, if you feel like you really know yourself, then there is a way to find happiness and to find gratitude and just a feeling of things are going to be okay because I trust that things are going to be okay. And so the more that you can connect these things, right? We started by talking about the mind, body, soul connection, but it's actually the same thing. So the more that you learn to also appreciate everything that you are, your body as it is, your mind, your performance, your just being in general, the more these things are going to be able to come through to you, the more that you're just going to feel really really filled with gratitude. I don't really know how else to explain it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that or if you can add anything to that,
Well,
but it's just this genuine feeling of gratitude.
yeah, I will say though that, and I appreciate that you say that you can't feel like that all the time. And I don't think we should aim to either. I mean,
Right.
somebody who's just walking around being happy all the time, as you were saying, is that's probably not true. And also, there are two sides to everything, and that's why we can experience happiness is because we also experience deep sadness,
Yeah.
right? And life gets so for me, it's not so much happiness; it's more a contentedness or an awe or a wonder or an acceptance of life as it is. So I think that a life that's just happy, 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 that's not a deep life. That's a very shallow life, because you're only
Absolutely.
living in one dimensional. You're trying to, like, you're suppressing something else if you're happy all the time. So to me, it is really about exploring the profundity of life, that to be able to really, as you were saying, Vanessa, to appreciate that today I'm feeling good. I'm feeling grateful. You can only really appreciate that if you know what it's like to feel really sad. And as you were saying, you've had a couple of hard weeks, with sadness, grief, and so on. Yes, welcome that grief. That's part of life. Death is part of life. And I think we need to accept that and to actually welcome it in a way. I don't mean welcome it as in, oh, it's so great to feel sad. It's not, but it truly is a part of life, and it brings that depth to life. And depth is so much more valuable, that profundity to life, than just living on the surface. That's where the juice is. And that's why we need both. We need all of it. But
Mm.
can we have some kind of acceptance and trust and contentedness even in the hard times? And it's again that trust. We know that everything changes all the time. Everything changes all the time. So if you know that and trust that, then you also know that, yeah, today is a pretty tough day. I'm actually sad, I'm grieving, I'm crying, and that's okay, because these things just happened. But I do trust that another day will come where I'll feel grateful, and even allowing these micro moments. Even when you're grieving deeply, you can go for a walk and the sun just comes through the trees in a certain way, and you forget about all your grief, and all of a sudden you're just like, wow, that is so beautiful. And then you go back to grieving. you know
Yeah.
nothing is permanent. No feelings are permanent. We're always shifting. We're not a solid thing. We're more like a candle flame. Like a human life
Mm.
is like a candle flame. It's shifting and morphing and moving all the time. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of life, that aliveness that's just coursing through us and is never the same. Never ever the same. How wonderful is that? How much curiosity can we bring to that?
Life is just so beautiful in that way. I completely agree. I completely agree.
Mm.
And that's, I think, in those moments, that's where I find the most gratitude, right? To have that yin and that yang, the life and the death, the light and the dark. And, this, I'm just going to get a little esoteric here for a second, but, if we think that, we're here for a reason, we are stardust and we chose to come here and we chose to have this experience. There's something someone sent me the other day, and I'm going to butcher this, but it was something to the effect of, like, if that's true, right? Every time I have a terrible moment in life or a stressful moment in life, I want to remember the version of me that's life ended, and I went back up into the ethers, but I begged to come back. I begged to come back so that I could see the moon one more time, so that I could cry sad, deep, heavy tears one more time, so that I could feel the breeze on my cheek one more time. And that's so beautiful, right? Because if all of that is true, we can't experience the things that we experience anywhere else but
Mm.
here on this earth. It's such a human experience. And again, if it feels like I'm speaking in another language, I totally get it. But it really makes things feel really, really magical and really beautiful. And trust me, I don't feel like that when I'm going through something hard. I don't feel like that when I'm pissed off, right? And then that's what we just kind of talked about. But I think, again, just like the folly, the mysticism of life, what it's about, why we're here in general. I know it's, we're getting very high level with that, but I just wanted to add that, seeing the light through the trees, like all of those things, like they're just those very beautiful moments. And even something as simple as that, even in the center of grief, at its heaviest, at its worst, can do something for that mind body soul connection. Like it just does do something for you, even if in the moment you're not fully present and you're not fully noticing it still, I think, does something for you.
Yeah, for sure. And even if you don't feel that esoteric about things, you still have to look around and say, oh my goodness, what a planet. Like,
Yeah.
look at the rose, look at the intricacy of it, or look at a tree, or look at a lake, or look at whatever you look like, wherever you put your gaze in the natural world, there's so much beauty. And you don't find that kind of beauty on other planets. You don't find that kind of diversity. So, as you were saying, it is really magical to be here. And we can also choose our lives even on a how can I say, on a larger level. Like, I chose to leave the city. I live way out in the countryside, and there are choices to be had. We often see ourselves boxed in and without choices, and like, yeah, that's easy for you to say. We often
Yeah.
say that, but it's because it's very difficult for human beings to think outside the box. But it is possible to choose a whole other life if that's what you want, or to make small changes to your life. But it is up to us. Like, nobody else is going to come and solve something for us. And it can be fun to take the reins really for real and seriously off your own life and start thinking, wow, how do I actually want to live? And what kind of mind state do I want to live? And what kind of environment do I want to live? What kind of job do I want to have? We can start writing these things down and playing with ideas and engaging with ideas, and then let that grow and see what happens. We don't need to like do something crazy right here and now, but there is so much more possibility than we normally allow ourselves to see. We just see this little box, and that's just how humans are. We're conditioned to just live in this little box that we've boxed ourselves into. But there's so much possibility and potential outside the box if we can somehow manage to break the walls of that box and start looking around and saying, wow, what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good. I could definitely chat with you about this all day. And I love it. And Durita, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your time and sharing all of your amazing wisdom with everybody. I know you're not super present on social media, but if somebody listens to this episode and they love you and maybe they want a little more of you, where would they best go to connect?
Yeah, I am on Facebook and Instagram, though I'm not very active at this moment in time. And I think my handle is just my name, Durita, DuritaHolm, Durita Holm. So I'm pretty easy to find, I think.
Perfect.
And Vanessa, it's really great because we often talk work stuff. So great to connect, and love this conversation.
Yes, me too. We'll have to do more of these.
We will.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rebel Rise podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and invite your friends to join us next week. This is your time. Now get out there and rise.